Hello and welcome to the IT Leadership 5 Minute series. Today we have Matthew Suddock with us, who is the head of IT for BlackMilk Clothing. Welcome, Matthew.
Hi there.
Thanks very much for joining us today. Today is going to be about me just asking a couple of questions and seeing where the conversation flows. The series obviously been started with an interesting climate that we're in right now, and I was interested to find out how your sector, your business and your industry is going at the moment.
So, as with everyone, it's very challenging. We are a retail business and things were challenging before this, let alone now. We are lucky in the sense that we are 100% online. So compared to some of our competitors, we don't have that retail store network that is now generating no sales and just costs. So that allows us, firstly, to carry on selling, and secondly, our cost base is the same as it was, rather than having all these costs that aren't going to bring in any revenue. In some instances, it's been good because a load of people have just sat at home and scrolled through their phones. So we're getting more eyeballs on our product, which is very good from our perspective. We're seeing greater interaction on our Facebook and our Instagram.
That's great to hear. I mean, thank goodness you guys are fully online. I mean, that's obviously benefited you now. And even coming out the other side of it, I think anyone that's fully online or has a big online presence now is going to benefit at the end of this continuously. So that's fantastic. So, I mean, from your side, there hasn't been a huge amount of change in sort of the structure apart from more on the growth side. So, obviously your marketing team's been working quite a lot. Has your team always been remote?
Broadly speaking, because BlackMilk is we manufacture onshore, so we manufacture in Brisbane. The majority of the clothing that we make, we have had an office because we've got a factory, and so people go to the office and they do their work and then they go home, and there's a certain amount of offline or at-home working for evenings, weekends, looking after our social media interactions. So there's always been that as a possibility, and it's something we've had to provide. As a online business, I've pushed for a cloud-first strategy for everything. I've got very little actual kit in the office, and so that makes the at-home working just that bit easier. So if you go for a software as a service solution, it doesn't matter where they are. We run G Suite for our email and for all of our documents and drives and that sort of thing. We have a software as a service accountancy system. And with it being cloud first, that meant that everything is connected over the internet broadly, even if it's just from our office. So in terms of allowing working from home, for us, it was scaling up our VPN capacity and writing documentation around our users. We ended up with maybe 3 or 4 ways of connecting to our systems depending on the user's needs. So probably one of our more challenging environments, we have a graphics design team that design the garments that we make, and giving those guys that team work from home capability was somewhat challenging, in the sense that these files get to gigs and gigs and gigs of size. They are local at our office just for pure network latency perspective. So in the end, I basically designed VDI. We gave them access to their machines on their desktops at work. It's not perfect, but it does allow them to do probably 50-60% work from home, and they come into an office 1 or 2 days a week, depending on need.
Okay, well, that works really well. All right. So the manufacturing facility is still open at the moment?
Yeah. If we can't make it, we can't sell it. So
essential service,
essential service in the sense we've got a job, we can continue. We haven't seen the 30% dip in sales as we've heard, as lots of other people have had. So if we can, the longer we can continue, the longer we can effectively prepare for if we do get shut down. Hopefully not, fingers crossed. But also that's allowed us to investigate things like making gowns and masks and that kind of stuff. Work in progress, but it's an
option.
It's a possibility. It's an option for us. We've got 50 or 60 sewing machines that are sat there currently making BlackMilk clothing, but a sewing machine's a sewing machine.
Yeah, absolutely. And so moving forward, I mean, I understand no one can predict the future. Do you think that, once we're past this, that any little bit of change that you've had right now, do you think that will stay, or given that you're online, you will kind of or revert back to working in the corporate office that's on site, or the security that you've got at the moment with regards to the IP that you have? Has that changed, and will that stay in place? I'm just interested to find out what you guys are doing right now, whether you're looking to improve on that, and you can see some improvements right now because we're all put in a situation that we weren't expecting, or is it kind of just going to be BAU for you guys moving forward?
I think so. I would expect more people to, now they have this working from home capacity, to expect it. Yeah. So some teams which have been pretty much always office based, there's no necessarily need for that. It's almost like a security blanket that they can go down the hall and talk to somebody. I think that would be our that would be more likely. So that's supporting more work from home as a BAU process is likely. I think the other thing we'll see, so at the moment our graphics team, they are still bound to their desk. They still need a powerful machine on their desk, but could we move that to a cloud, a proper VDI implementation? Yep, possibly we could. And that's something that you'll talk for, and that's moving that big capital expense for when those machines break or when they need to be replaced, to a more rolling expense month by month, and then you can, with various cloud services, you can reserve those instances for however long and reduce your costs significantly. The other thing as I'm saying is that yes, we'll probably look at beefing up some of our security stuff. I was quite happy with how our VPN solution was performing, and essentially we used the same one and scaled up. But some of the things around endpoint protection, people using their own machines, that kind of stuff, I'd like to do a little bit more around. If this becomes a rather good, I should imagine everyone has done it belt and braces. And so it's then about going through that process of reducing your attack surface later. Ideally you'd spend a couple of months figuring out how people can get in, making sure all your IP rules are set up, making sure how all the stuff is restricted. But it's business survival and business continuity, and that takes precedence.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the challenges a couple of my clients are having, where IT is playing a big part in, is actually the onboarding of new employees right now, because you've got someone who would normally come into an office and go to a desk and have their PC or their laptop and do the onboarding, but everything's been sent and couriered to the new starter's home, and it's about trying to get them set up and their access and everything working correctly with the right hardware, printers. So it's been quite an interesting process. And IT's really come in, has really been a hero in a lot of this that I've seen with my clients, and even with my own business, having to, we have an offshore team that we had to get from, a city which obviously has access to everything, to where they live in regional areas, and making sure that they have internet and hardware to use, and the security on the information that they're using. And thank goodness we're also cloud based, so everything's logged in through a secure site, but you just don't know what's saved to personal PCs. So trying to get that locked down, which we're still working on. So it's really been an interesting process. And like I said, IT is really showing its head in terms of being a hero in this sort of environment, and will continue to do so.
Yeah, I think so. I think you mentioned when we were talking before around sort of IT resources, BlackMilk at the moment has just me as an IT kind of resource for various reasons around headcount and stuff. But the what saved me is kind of assuming this was going to happen already. So I assumed that at some point I would need to give people access from home. I assumed that at some point things would be bigger, that every part of our infrastructure would need to be bigger at some point. And so that meant when I built things, I said, well, firstly, cloud only, it allows you to do that. But also, as an example, our VPN implementation way back in the day when I was working for in-store retail in the UK, we had a VPN box, a physical server that had a 5-user license on it. And if we wanted another one or a larger one, we'd have to go through a CapEx process, a PO process, a quote process, and go up to the next size, which was 25, and that was 5 times the cost and a massive annual uplift in terms of software. Here, I fired up a new one, which costs roughly twice per hour as the old one, but is 1.5 times the size, and turn the old one off, copy the database across. It took me an hour and a half. So it's that kind of assuming it's going to happen a little bit anyway, but also from the perspective of talking about IT being a hero, it's saying yes and then figuring out how.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And as our business might recruit in IT, and we have IT support ourselves. I'm a business person, but I'm not an IT person. So it's been a very interesting process. So that's been. If you could, share one sort of takeaway from today in terms of supporting another business, what takeaway do you think would be good? Something that you've kind of learnt over, whether it's now or over the last 12, 18 months.
I think so. Probably a couple. So, firstly, if you've got the will, everyone will be able to work from home. If they're a desk computer-based person, everyone should be able to do that. And the tools are available now, allow you to do this. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, this would not be possible. So that would be the first one. And it's not necessarily saying, but it's about, you can get it done. It's just kind of sometimes just girding your loins and just kind of, leaves a bad taste in your mouth, but you might have to fix that later if it's that. And the other one is kind of I'm making assumptions, but plan for a remote workforce, regardless of your business, regardless of your what you actually do. So in factory making widgets, we're a clothing company. I would never have I could have quite easily sat in the meetings and gone, we're not ever going to work from home, because if the sewers can't work, nobody else can. But then you get into a stage where you need to actually, it's about reducing a risk. Then suddenly it becomes, well, actually having 30-40% of the physical bodies outside the office is a good idea. So from a technical perspective, we run Max as our default endpoint. There's tools around that. You mentioned about onboarding. We've got a MDM, a mobile device manager. I started implementing one of those because I needed to do a couple of things. It was frustrating, and we've got to get one done middle of last year. And I got everything up and running, and that means that if somebody's laptop breaks at home, I don't physically have to touch it.
Yeah.
Because then it does the bootstrapping and it brings the managed software down. And the other thing I did just after Christmas, because as a technical exercise, but also as a bit of a backup, is I moved our managed software catalog from internal only to on the internet. So that meant that if somebody does start and I buy a laptop from Apple, I have it shipped to their house, they turn it on, it gets all of its profiles, it creates a user, and then I just talk through them, logging into their email on the phone, which makes my life
a lot easier. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. And what I would like to do is obviously keep in touch in the next couple of months, circle back and to see if there's been any changes. Like I said, no one knows what's going to be happening in the next few months, and it's kind of taking it week by week. But yeah, we'll definitely catch up and record another video and find out, if there's been any changes in the climate, but with the business as well.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Thanks so much.
Thank you.